3 true 7-11 horror stories. Animated story 1. The Graveyard Shift. My name is Terence, and I was 24 years old when this happened. I was working the overnight shift at a 7-Eleven in Phoenix, Arizona, one of those 24-hour locations on a busy street that got quiet after midnight. It was a Tuesday night in late January, around 3:30 a.m., when a man walked through the front door and started browsing the aisles without picking anything up. He moved slowly, methodically, like he was checking every corner of the store. Every few seconds, his eyes would flick to the counter where I was standing, to the security camera above the register, to the backroom door behind me. He was not shopping, he was planning. Before I continue, make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from tonight. Because what happened in that store over the next hour is something I will never forget. The 7-Eleven I worked at was located on a commercial strip that was busy during the day, but dead at night. We were sandwiched between a laundromat and a check cashing place, both of which closed by 9 p.m. By midnight, we were usually the only lights still on in that stretch of road. The parking lot had maybe 10 spaces poorly lit, with a dumpster area at the back that was not visible from inside the store. I had been working overnights there for about 6 months. The job was simple enough. Run the register restock, the shelves, mop the floors, and try to stay awake until the morning crew arrived at 6. Most nights were uneventful. A few truckers passing through, some insomniacs buying cigarettes, the occasional drunk looking for snacks after the bars closed. Nothing I could not handle. That Tuesday started normally. I clocked in at 10 p.m., took over from the evening shift, and settled in for a long night. By 2 a.m., I had maybe 5 customers. By 3, the place was dead. I was leaning against the counter, scrolling through my phone, fighting the urge to close my eyes. At 3:28, the door chimed, and he walked in. He was maybe mid-40s, average height, wearing a grey sweatshirt with the hood down, and jeans that looked like they had not been washed in weeks. His hair was greasy, uncombed, and there was something about his eyes that immediately put me on edge. They were too alert, too focused, the eyes of someone who was not tired at 3:30 in the morning. I gave him the standard greeting. "Welcome to 7-Eleven. Let me know if you need anything." He did not respond, did not even look at me. He just walked past the counter and started moving through the aisles. I watched him through the security mirrors mounted in the corners of the ceiling. He was not shopping the way normal customers shop. He was not looking at products. He was looking at the store itself, the layout, the blind spots, the camera positions, the door to the back room. After about 5 minutes of this, he walked to the cooler section at the back of the store. He opened one of the glass doors and stood there, not reaching for anything, just letting the cold air wash over him while he stared at the bottles inside. I moved my hand toward the panic button under the counter. The button connected to a silent alarm that would alert the security company and dispatch police. I had never used it before, but I knew exactly where it was. He closed the cooler door and walked back toward the front of the store. He stopped at the counter maybe 3 feet from where I was standing and looked at me directly for the first time. He asked what time we closed. I told him we were opened 24 hours. He nodded slowly, like he was filing that information away. Then he asked if I was working alone. He said it casually, like it was just conversation. But there was nothing casual about the question. I lied. I told him my manager was in the back doing inventory. I told him he would be out any minute. He smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who knew I was lying and found it amusing. He asked how many cameras we had. He asked if they recorded or just showed live feeds. He asked if the police response time in this neighborhood was good. I told him I was going to have to ask him to leave. I told him if he was not going to purchase anything, he needed to go. His smile faded. He looked at me for a long moment, that intense focus burning in his eyes. Then he reached into the pocket of his sweatshirt. I pressed the panic button. He pulled out a pack of gum, held it up so I could see, asked how much. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear my own voice. I told him $1.50. He pulled out 2 crumpled bills and set them on the counter. I made change with hands that were shaking, dropping coins, fumbling with the register. He took his gum and his change. He walked to the door. He stopped with his hand on the handle and looked back at me. He said he would see me later. He said he liked this store. He said it had potential. Then he left. I watched him walk across the parking lot and disappear into the darkness beyond the reach of the lights. I did not see a car. I did not see which direction he went. He just vanished. The police arrived about 8 minutes later, responding to the panic alarm. I told them what had happened, described the man, described his questions and his behavior. They took notes and said they would patrol the area for the rest of the night. One of the officers took me aside. He said the questions the man had asked were reconnaissance. He said people planning robberies often scope out locations beforehand, checking security systems, staffing levels, response times. He said I should be careful over the next few weeks. I finished my shift that night with every nerve on edge, jumping at every sound, watching the door constantly. He did not come back, but he came back 2 nights later. Same time, same entrance, same slow walk through the aisles, checking the store, like he was confirming details from memory. This time, he did not come to the counter. He just walked through, looked at me, smiled, and left. The 3rd night, he did not come inside at all. He just stood in the parking lot, visible through the window, watching the store for about 20 minutes. Then he walked away. I reported each incident to the police. I told my manager. I begged to be moved to a different shift, a different location, anything. My manager said they were short-staffed, that there was nothing he could do right now, that the police were aware of the situation. On the 5th night, I called in sick. I could not do it. I could not stand behind that counter waiting for him to come through the door, waiting for whatever he was planning to finally happen. The next morning, I found out what he had been planning. The overnight clerk who covered my shift was a woman named Marissa. She was 22, working her way through community college saving money for nursing school. She had covered my shift as a favor. He came in at 4 a.m. This time, he was not alone. There were 2 of them. They had guns. Marissa did everything right. She gave them the money from the register. She did not resist. She did not try to be a hero. They shot her anyway. She survived. Barely. 3 weeks in the ICU, multiple surgeries, a recovery that would take years. The bullet had missed her spine by less than an inch. They caught them a week later. Robbed another convenience store 2 cities over and got into a shootout with police. One of them was killed. The other, the one who had been watching me for 5 nights, was arrested. At the trial, they recovered his phone. He had photographs of the 7-Eleven where I worked. Photographs of me behind the counter taken through the window at night. He had been watching me specifically, learning my schedule, planning to come for me. But I called in sick, and Marissa took my shift. I've never been able to reconcile that. I survived because I was afraid. Marissa nearly died because she was covering for me. She does not blame me. She has told me that multiple times. But I blame myself. I always will. I quit that job the day after the shooting. I never worked overnight retail again. I cannot. Every time I think about standing behind a counter at 3 a.m., I see his face, that smile, the questions about cameras and response times. And I think about Marissa, who did not know what I knew, who did not see the warning signs, who walked into a situation I should have prevented. If you work overnight shifts at convenience stores, please be careful. If something feels wrong, trust that feeling. Report it. Document it. And if you have to call in sick, because the person casing your store does not care about your bills or your responsibilities. They only care about the moment when you are alone and vulnerable, and the potential they see in that situation. I saw that potential in his eyes, and I ran from it. I wish Marissa had been given the same chance. Story 2. The Customer. My name is Roland, and I was 31 years old when this happened. I was stopping at a 7-Eleven in suburban Denver, Colorado, on my way home from working a late shift at the hospital where I was an orderly. It was around 1:15 a.m. on a Friday night, and I needed coffee and something to eat before making the 30-minute drive to my apartment. The store was quiet when I walked in. Just me, the clerk behind the counter, and one other customer near the back by the beer coolers. I did not pay much attention to the other customer at first. I was tired, focused on getting my food and leaving. But then I noticed the clerk. The way she was standing, the tension in her shoulders, the fear in her eyes. And I realized that the situation I had walked into was not what it appeared to be. If you are new here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because what happened in that 7-Eleven is something every late-night shopper needs to hear. I've been working at the hospital for about 3 years, mostly evening shifts in the emergency department. The hours were brutal, but I liked the work. By 1 a.m. on a Friday night, I had been on my feet for almost 10 hours, and all I wanted was caffeine and carbs to get me through the drive home. The 7-Eleven was on my regular route, a well-lit location in a strip mall that I had stopped at dozens of times without incident. The parking lot had a few cars in it, nothing unusual for that time of night. I parked near the entrance and went inside. The first thing I noticed was the silence. At this time, on a Friday, there was usually someone else in the store, maybe a few people. Tonight it was nearly empty. Just the clerk, a young woman who looked maybe early 20s standing behind the counter, and a man near the back of the store by the beer coolers. I walked toward the coffee station, grabbing a large cup and filling it with whatever they had that was fresh. I was so tired that I was operating on autopilot, not really paying attention to my surroundings. That is when I looked up and saw the clerk's face. She was looking at me, but not the way clerks usually look at customers. There was something in her expression, a tightness around the eyes, a message she was trying to send without speaking. I glanced toward the back of the store. The man by the beer coolers had not moved. He was not browsing. He was just standing there, one hand in his jacket pocket, watching the clerk. Watching me. I looked back at the clerk. She made a small motion, with her eyes glancing toward something under the counter, then back at me. She was trying to tell me something. I walked slowly toward the counter, my coffee in hand, my brain finally waking up from its exhausted stupor. Something was wrong here. Very wrong. I set my coffee on the counter and pulled out my wallet. I spoke loudly, casually, asking how her night was going. She responded with a tight smile and said, "Fine, just fine. Everything is fine." Nobody says everything is fine, unless it is not fine. I glanced toward the back again. The man had moved. He was walking toward us now, still with his hand in his pocket, his eyes fixed on the clerk. I understood. He was robbing the store. Or he was about to. He had been waiting for the right moment, and I had walked in and complicated his plan. Now he was trying to figure out how to handle the situation with a witness present. I had two choices. I could pretend I did not notice anything, and leave, hoping he would let me go. Or I could try to help. I am not a hero. I am an orderly who spends his shifts cleaning up after real emergencies. But I looked at that clerk at the fear she was trying to hide, and I could not walk away. I spoke loudly again, saying I needed to use the restroom before I left. I asked where it was. The clerk pointed toward the back of the store, toward a hallway I had noticed near the coolers. I walked toward the back, passing within a few feet of the man. He watched me, his hand still in his pocket. I could feel his eyes on my back as I pushed through the door marked restroom. I did not go to the restroom. I stopped in the hallway, pulled out my phone, and dialed 911. I whispered into the phone, giving the address, telling the dispatcher I believed a robbery was in progress, telling her there was a woman at the counter who seemed afraid. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line. She told me police were being dispatched. She told me not to confront the individual. I stayed in that hallway for what felt like hours, but was probably 3 minutes. I listened through the door, trying to hear what was happening in the store. Voices. The man saying something I could not make out. The clerk responding, her voice high and tight. Then I heard sirens. Distant at first, then closer. Through the small window in the hallway door, I saw the man turn toward the front of the store. He heard the sirens too. His hand came out of his pocket, and I saw what he'd been holding. A gun. Small, black, deadly. He looked toward the hallway where I was hiding. For a moment I thought he was going to come for me, eliminate the witness who'd complicated his plan. Instead, he ran. He sprinted past the counter, past the clerk, and out the front door. I heard tires squealing in the parking lot. The police arrived about 90 seconds later. I came out of the hallway and found the clerk sitting on the floor behind the counter, crying. She told the officers what had happened. He had come in about 10 minutes before I arrived. He had shown her the gun and told her to act normal, to keep working, to wait until the store was empty. Then he was going to take the money and her. Her. Not just the money. He had plans for her. She said when I walked in, it confused him. He did not know how to handle another person in the store. He told her if she signaled to me, if she did anything to alert me, he would shoot us both. But she had signaled anyway. Those small glances, the tension in her expression, the way she said everything is fine. She'd risked her life to warn me, and I had understood. I had called for help. The sirens had scared him away before he could do whatever he had been planning. The police caught him about an hour later. He had a record. Armed robbery, assault, worse things that the officer wouldn't tell me, but that I could guess from his expression. He was going away for a long time. The clerk's name was Jessica. She sent me a card about a month later thanking me for what I did. She said most people would have just left. She said most people wouldn't have noticed anything wrong. I think about that night a lot. How close it came. How easily I could have just grabbed my coffee and walked out too tired to notice the fear in her eyes. How easily she could have become another statistic, another tragedy on the late night news. Pay attention when you walk into stores late at night. Look at the employees. Look at the other customers. Notice if something seems off, if someone seems scared, if the energy in the room feels wrong. And if you see something, do something. Call for help. Do not confront the person yourself. But do not just walk away and pretend you did not notice. Because sometimes the only thing standing between a victim and a predator is a stranger who is paying attention. Be that stranger. It might save someone's life. Story 3, The Parking Lot. My name is Darren, and I was 26 years old when this happened. I was stopping at a 7-Eleven in suburban Atlanta, Georgia, around 11:45 p.m. on a Wednesday night to grab some snacks before heading home. The store was busy for that time of night, maybe 6 or 7 customers inside, which made me feel safe. Normal. Like nothing could possibly go wrong in such a public space. I made my purchases, walked out to my car, and that is when everything changed. A van had parked next to my driver's side door, so close that I could not open it more than a few inches. And standing between the van and my car, blocking my path, was a man I had not noticed following me out of the store. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications on, because what happened in that parking lot is a warning to anyone who shops alone at night. I had been working late that week, staying at the office until 10 or 11 every night, trying to meet a project deadline. By Wednesday, I was exhausted and running low on groceries. The 7-Eleven was on my route home, and I figured I could grab some microwave meals and snacks to get me through the rest of the week. The store was located in a strip mall off a busy road, well lit with plenty of parking. When I pulled in around 11:40, the lot was maybe half full. There were other customers visible through the windows, employees behind the counter. It felt safe. It felt normal. I parked toward the middle of the lot, maybe 50 feet from the entrance, in a spot with open spaces on both sides. I went inside, grabbed a basket, and started shopping. I spent maybe 10 minutes in the store, walking through the aisles, picking up chips and frozen burritos and a 6-pack of energy drinks. I paid at the counter, made small talk with the cashier, and headed for the exit. I pushed through the door and walked toward my car. I was looking at my phone, checking messages from my girlfriend, not paying attention to my surroundings. That is when I looked up and saw the van. It was a white cargo van with no windows in the back, parked directly next to my driver's side door. It had not been there when I arrived. The spaces on both sides of my car had been empty. Someone had deliberately parked there while I was inside, blocking my access to my car. I slowed down, a cold feeling spreading through my chest. Something was wrong. Every instinct was telling me to stop, to turn around, to go back inside. I was still processing this when he stepped out from between the van and my car. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with a heavy build and a shaved head. He was wearing all black, and his hands were empty. But something about his posture, the way he positioned himself between me and my vehicle, made it clear that his hands were not going to stay empty for long. He smiled at me. Not a friendly smile. The smile of someone who had done this before. He said he needed help with something in his van. He said he had a piece of furniture that was too heavy for one person. He said it would only take a minute. I did not believe him. The van, the blocked car, the isolation of this corner of the lot. It was a trap. I was looking at a trap. I said no thanks. I said I was in a hurry. I started backing away toward the store, toward the lights and the people inside. He moved faster than I expected. He covered the distance between us in 3 quick strides and grabbed my arm. Up close, I could see his eyes. They were flat, empty. The eyes of someone who did not see me as a person. The eyes of someone who saw me as an obstacle or an object. He said I should not be rude. He said he just needed a little help. He said I should come with him. His grip on my arm was like iron. I could not break free. I screamed. I screamed as loud as I could, a wordless shout that echoed across the parking lot. I screamed, and I kept screaming even as he tried to clamp his hand over my mouth. People inside the store heard. I saw faces turning toward the windows, saw someone pointing, saw the cashier reaching for a phone. The man cursed and let go of my arm. He ran to the driver's side of the van, jumped inside and floored it. The van tore out of the parking lot, tires squealing, and disappeared into the night. I stood there, shaking my arm, throbbing where he had grabbed me. People were coming out of the store, now asking if I was okay, telling me the police had been called. The police arrived in about 5 minutes. I gave them a description of the man, the van, what had happened. They took notes and said they would investigate. A week later, a detective called me. They had found the van abandoned at a construction site about 20 miles away. Inside, they had found duct tape zip ties and a mattress in the back. A mattress. The detective said, based on the evidence, I had been targeted for abduction. He said the man had probably been watching me from the moment I walked into the store. He said when I parked with open spaces on both sides, I had given him the perfect opportunity to set up his trap. He said I was lucky. He said screaming was exactly the right thing to do. He said a lot of people freeze in that moment, afraid of making a scene, afraid of being wrong. I was afraid too. But I screamed anyway, and that scream saved my life. They never caught him. The van was wiped clean, no fingerprints. The detective said there had been similar incidents in other parts of the city. A pattern. A predator working the area targeting people who shopped alone at night. I think about that parking lot constantly. The van appearing next to my car. The man stepping out of the shadows. The grip on my arm that I could not break. I think about what would have happened if I had not screamed. If I had frozen like so many people do. If I had let him lead me to that van with the mattress in the back. I do not shop alone at night anymore. When I go to stores after dark, I bring someone with me. I park close to the entrance, under lights, where I can be seen from inside. I check my surroundings before I leave the store. I have my keys in my hand, ready to get into my car immediately. And if something feels wrong, I do not worry about making a scene. I do not worry about being embarrassed if it turns out to be nothing. I trust my instincts. I make noise. I get attention. Because the person who wants to take you is counting on your silence. They are counting on your fear of embarrassment. They are counting on you to be polite, to go along, to not cause a scene. Do not give them what they want. Scream, run, fight. Make yourself the most difficult target possible. Because the mattress in the back of that van was not for me. It was for whoever he caught next. Whoever froze instead of screaming. Whoever let politeness override their survival instinct. I survived because I made noise. I survived because people heard me. I survived because I refused to go quietly. If you remember nothing else from this story, remember that. Predators hunt in silence. They rely on victims who will not draw attention. The most powerful weapon you have is your voice. Use it. Those were 3 true 7-Eleven horror stories. Convenience stores are places we visit constantly, often late at night when we are tired and distracted. We run in for coffee, for snacks, for the small necessities of daily life. We do not think of them as dangerous because they are so ordinary, so familiar. But, as these stories show, ordinary places can become hunting grounds. The overnight clerk working alone at 3 a.m. The customer who notices something wrong but almost walks away. The shopper whose car gets blocked by a van in the parking lot. Danger does not announce itself. It does not wait until you are alert and prepared. It comes when you are exhausted, when you are distracted, when you are alone in a parking lot, thinking about your phone instead of your surroundings. Pay attention. Trust your instincts. And if something feels wrong, do not worry about being polite. Make noise. Get help. Do whatever it takes to survive. Because the person watching you from the shadows is counting on you to stay quiet. They are counting on you to doubt your instincts. They are counting on you to walk right into their trap without making a sound. Do not give them what they want.